Hello, friends. Today, I'm taking you back to 1999. Yeah, I know we talked about the 80s, but we'll move up a decade. And this was a time of dial-up internet, Y2K worries. Remember the Y2K bug? And my own personal computer disaster. It's a story about high hopes, hard lessons, and how a personal supercomputer turned into a very expensive lesson. So get in here, come along, let's tell a story. So here I am, a graduating senior in the summer of 1999, which felt kind of special. It was technically not the end of the millennium, but it felt like it. There wasn't going to be a 19 at the beginning of years anymore. And I was packing up. I was heading out of this small town in North Carolina where I lived and heading to college. I am 17 years old. I have like $500 in my pocket. I've got a little tan Honda Civic hatchback DX, which that meant that it was the absolute cheapest piece of crap car you could possibly purchase from Honda. Even the side mirror, and I think the driver's side was optional. So you just had to kind of look around your side to see, but I did have a side mirror on the other side. And so I packed this little guy up and I was taking a trip from North Carolina to Illinois. Why? I had been accepted to college. Even though I really wanted to go to Duke University, I didn't have 20, 30, 40,000 a year, whatever it was. It was insane for a kid my age to have that kind of cash. And so my fallback school was DeVry Institute of Technology, which is now DeVry University. I guess that sounds cooler. And I reach Chicago. Now, going from a town, I think there was 50,000 people in total where I lived, to Chicago, or in Chicagoland, which was a place of millions of people, was overwhelming. I think my first impression of moving to Chicago was, man, everyone drives really fast. And they talked really fast. Now, upon reaching Chicago, I needed a checking account. I needed a job. I went to a bank to open a checking account and get a debit card and establish myself in this new town, get some checks, things that pretty much nobody uses anymore. And I was kind of bold, right? I was a new kid in town and said, hey, I need a job. But fortunately, they had some jobs. They were looking for bank tellers. And so I was ushered into this little room where I took a bunch of tests, math tests, and like loyalty tests to see if you would steal and if you were honest. And lo and behold, I passed, which makes sense. I've never stolen anything. I'm very against crime. So I got a job right off the gate because I was bold enough to ask for one and take it. And this was fun. I got to handle money as a bank teller. I got to work with the local sheriff's department when they would drive up to one of my drive-up business bank telling windows, and they would hand this bag to me with tens of thousands of dollars to count and process and put into their account for them. So that was fun, especially the little vacuum tubes that would send people's checks and paperwork to and from the drive-up windows. I learned some lessons there, being 17 and then 18 and taking a job in a bank. I remember at one point, I was tired of going down to the vault to get more money for my bank till, which is the thing that holds all the money. And so normally you keep a small amount of money there and you keep replenishing it throughout the day. And I thought, I'll just get $30,000 or something like that and put it into my bank till. And my manager's like, let me teach you about bank robbery and why that's a bad idea. So certainly learned a lot of things about handling money and how it gets processed and how people pay off money for things like taking out advances on their checks. It was an interesting job. Now, when I moved to Chicago and went to DeVry, I brought with me my UMax SuperMac Mac computer. I was a big Mac guy. Everything that I had was Apple inspired. I had my Mac clone. I don't think you can buy Mac clones anymore. I think that was killed off in like 98. But at the time, Apple was kind of this beleaguered company and they weren't doing super well. And they had all these clone companies where you could buy kind of Mac knockoffs. And Super Mac was great from UMax because it was under $1,000. It was like the cheapest way you can get a Mac. It's very affordable. I was a loyal fan. But at the same time, I had experience with Windows 95 and Windows 98 and Windows 98B because we had a dual boot PC in the home that allowed you to either boot into Mac or into Windows. Now, going to college, they told me, hey, we don't support Mac stuff. We're a PC shop. We'd run things on Windows. And when you're young and you're loyal to a particular brand, you don't make the best decisions. And so I needed to write code in COBOL and Pascal and Java and C. I needed to work with like oscilloscopes, believe it or not, because we had breadboards and we would attach wires and probes and things to these breadboards as we programmed them. So I figured, you know what? I'll get a really powerful Mac and I'll emulate what I need. And that way I can stay in the Mac ecosystem and continue having a Macintosh, great PCs that I felt were really exciting. I could run Windows applications and emulate them. As an aside, at the time, I was super into a game called Ultima Online. If you were ever in the United Tamers of Britannia Guild, if you were ever on the Catskills server, hello, I probably encountered you. I had 2 worms that I tamed named Peaches and Fuzzy, and I certainly loved taming. It was a great hobby while I was in college. I'm looking around trying to find the right Mac for me. And again, this was 99, 2000 or so. Apple had released the PowerMac G4. This looked like something straight out of Tron. It was acrylic and plastic and translucent. It was blue and silver and gray, and it was cool. And I remember one of the things that I liked most about it was it kind of had these handles on all 4 corners, and you could pop open the case, and the board was actually on the side of the case. You'd pop it open. There's your board with the daughter cards, the processor, the whatever it is that you had, sound cards, things like that would be on the side. It was marketed as a personal supercomputer. I figured I had my solution. I would get one of these. That way I could write the code that I needed. I could emulate everything from games to the applications that I ran for school. And it even had a DVD player, so I could play The Matrix on my computer, which at the time was kind of mind-blowing. You normally had to have a DVD console that was dedicated to that. I applied for an Apple student loan. This is where I should have been a lot smarter. Because number one, the total price for this thing was like $3,600. It's not the end of the world, but man, that was a lot of money when you're a teenager. And that sounded okay because it's $35 a month. Okay, I can afford $35 a month. But the interest rate was astronomical. I think it was in the teens, maybe 15 to 17%. I thought, well, that's okay. I'm in school as a computer science major, even though I think this loan is going to cost me $10,000 once all the interest is paid out. That's okay. I'm just borrowing against my future returns. I need a good computer. I'm at a tech school where computers are central. I'm going to do it. Applied for the loan. Got the computer in. It was beautiful. Was very happy for like a week. The problem was that this computer was a giant lemon. I don't think the G4 was very successful. I've looked online when I was researching this episode, and it turns out a lot of people had a very similar experience, but the kind of communities that we have today aren't the communities that we had back then. So I felt like I was kind of alone in this lemon issue. One, that beautiful case that would pop open, it loved to pop open all the time. It would pop open while it was just sitting there under my desk. So I had to dirty the case with tape. I took some duct tape and applied that to where the side of the computer met the case. The second thing was these DVDs that I wanted to play so badly. I didn't have a DVD player. The computer was my DVD player. Didn't play DVDs. It played them, but the video and the audio would very quickly desynchronize from one another. So the audio would be behind and the video would lag, and it was a horrible experience. Okay, I had to tape the case. Okay, the DVD player wasn't the best, but could it perform as a supercomputer? The answer was no, not even close. All that hardware, all that talk about the dual processors and gigahertz of speed and this fancy architecture was marketing. Everything that I tried to run ran slowly, couldn't emulate the lab equipment that I needed. I couldn't emulate my software for writing code, couldn't emulate my games. I had made a poor decision. Everything that I bought this computer for didn't work. And so here I am at a tech school with no computer. That's bad juju. Now, sure, DeVry had computer labs, but those were pretty old computers running Windows 95 and DOS and just old stuff. So that's not pleasant. Plus, I'm having to go into school just to use a computer. I wanted to do that at home. That was kind of the whole point. Because a lot of the professors would give and receive homework via FTP servers that they ran. I reached out to Apple for support. And I was like, hey, there's a bunch of problems I'm having with the computer. Long story short, they kind of told me that's just life. The case problem was known and that there was no real fix for that. The DVD issue was just, well, that's an issue. Sorry. Can I take it back? Will you take the computer back and we'll call it a wash? No, right? Obviously no. But at the time I thought, you've given me a lemon. Cars have lemon laws. Do computers? They do not. So they wouldn't take the computer back. And I'm stuck with this really expensive loan and essentially a boat anchor of a computer that won't work. I felt really betrayed and taken advantage of. Sure, these are all my own fault. I didn't see or I ignored the red flags, but I was a kid. It's a student loan. They know my situation. And so you add all this together and it comes up to me learning 4 things. 1, companies don't care about you. It doesn't matter how loyal you are. It doesn't matter how long you've been a customer. They don't care. Period. Don't think that they do. The second, marketing is designed to fool you, right? They're always going to make things sound better than they are. A lot of times because people marketing don't actually use the product. So don't trust marketing. Third, high interest loans are a trap. They just are. Obviously, I shouldn't take out a loan at that age for 15 or 17%. Obviously, that's stupid, but you don't know that until you do it once and you learn from that mistake. So I would say my biggest issue there was counting on future earnings to pay for current costs. Bad idea. And then fourth, when your school says, hey, we don't support Mac, get a PC, run Windows, don't try to be smarter than that. Get a PC that runs Windows, because that way you're supported by the school. What they've asked you to go get is what you got. Because everyone at school is like, well, you did what we said not to do. We can't help you. And that sucked. So here I am, severely in debt. I had to get myself out of the situation. I got myself into it. I had to get out. One thing that I did that I felt was really smart that I wanted to share with you was I tried to make the problem a little bit bigger than just me. It's something I'm really good at now, but I was very new to at the time. And a lot of my classmates were part of this group at school called the Computer Users Group. Very nerdy, think like kind of the outcasts of the school. We're at a tech school and we're the outcasts. So that's how nerdy it was. Like the folks that play Dungeons and Dragons and tinker around with computers and eat pizza all the time. That was the group. But I love that group. Those are my people. And joining this group taught me a super valuable lesson in how to build computers. I didn't know how to build computers before. I didn't know you could build computers. I always said just bought computers. But because they were on a shoestring budget, they built their computers. They would buy the parts really cheap on Newegg or different PC parts websites, and they would build them from scratch because you could do it for like a fifth of the cost. A little plan started to hatch in my head. If I could get enough money to build a PC, then maybe I could get myself out of this. And at the same time, another friend said, there's this website called eBay, which I think had only been like 3 or 4 years old at the time, where you could try to sell your Mac. If Apple won't take it back, maybe someone actually needs this thing and you could sell it. I posted the computer on eBay. This gentleman out of Canada pings me and says, hey, I'm a graphics designer. And he said, this computer will work for me. Let's talk. The 3 things I had been having problems with were not going to be problems for him. So we settled on half of what I paid, $1,800. Everything worked out. I got lucky. Nobody got scammed. Now I have half of what my loan was worth in cash and no computer. But I went and bought all the computer parts, put the thing together, had all of my friends from the Computer Users Group, or CUG, helped me and encouraged me and reviewed the parts that I bought. And it worked. Put it together. Life was good. The only mistake I made was trying to use ball bearing grease instead of thermal paste for the CPU. But that's okay. We scraped all that off. We put the right thermal paste on and life went on. Now, I don't have an issue with people who use Apple products, right? I'm not on a crusade to say Apple bad, right? We all have our anecdotal experiences that shape us, but I will never use them. And I do mean never. I've only got an Apple account because I post this podcast to Apple Music. So I want to make sure it's available on the platform that you want to be on. And honestly, over half the people that listen to this show are on an Apple device. It doesn't bother me at all. But they, being Apple, will never get another dime from me. I felt so ripped off as just this student trying to get an education. Hopefully what you take away from this is that the way that companies treat people matters. They remember these things. These moments of impact resonate and ripple across years, decades, whatever. And so be very careful how you treat your customer. Be very considerate about how you market your product. Be very thoughtful about how you offer financial terms to sell what you have to customers, because they remember. And if you're on the other side, if you're a customer, what I want you to think about is, what were those experiences for you? How did they impact your life? And when a company really screws you over, are you willing to cut them from your life? What does it take for you to walk away? Because the only way they're really going to change their ways, their marketing, the way that they do business, is if you stop doing business with them. So I'll leave that as just food for thought and see what you think about it. Maybe this jogs your memories of a moment that you were vulnerable, or you just had a hard lesson that you needed to learn. How did that impact your life? Do you still do business with that company? Do you evangelize for them, or do you, de-evangelize for them? Do you try to detract from their market share? Let me know in the comments. You can always reach out to me on LinkedIn, but I'd be interested to hear your story. And with that, I hope you've enjoyed this somewhat rambly look back at an experience that I've had in this episode of Thoughtfully Critical. Let's talk again soon. Peace and love.